uh, the ongoing practices that we've had in this group uh, is meditation. Every session we do, whether it's heart to heart or we just do a couple meditations during our intensive. But we added gratitude this morning to have a gratitude practice. And if you missed the morning session, uh, if you're interested in how to do that, just drop me a line and I'll fill you in. But so we're going to go on to the third practice here for our talk, and then actually practice all of them today if we can. So I'm going to ready to go. Yeah. Now, 4 years ago, this was the first poem I did 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, I think in the very first session that we weren't actually taping those at the time, I don't think. But I've done it before. You might know this poem. It's a famous poem from Rumi, one of the most famous of his poems. Goes out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense when we're in this field, this unified field of love, this unified field of the heart. Okay, now that poem heads one of the sections in Cave of the Heart. So he's talking about another field, the field of unified field of love, the unified field of the heart. Uh, One of the reasons I'm wearing it's actually a two-sided mirror on both sides, is that and it hangs over my heart because this is heart to heart. We're trying to discover the spiritual area of the heart. Now, we're sort of a bi-spiritual kind of organism. Human beings live in both the field of time, where everything comes and goes, and we also live in the unified field of the heart, which is ever present, radiant, and eternal, though mostly hidden. I mean, whoever had a class on the unified field of the heart? No, we have classes on how to measure things and science, which is great. Uh, that's fine. That's part of life. That's the field of time. And remember, everything in time comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. Nothing is permanent there. And when it comes and goes at a wild, insane rate, that's the world we're living at in this country right now. 15 more presidential signing statements, and everything changes. All of a sudden, you get a call and you're out of a job. And you're coming out of nowhere. And that's what the bureaucrats, the federal workers are going through. It's chaos. It's chaos is just change at an unbelievable rate. There's always change. Everything in the field of time comes and goes, and that's primarily why it's a field of sorrow. Because we lose things, we lose people, we lose jobs, we lose relationships. That's just inherent in living in the field of time. That's part of the rent we pay to be humans. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that you're all here. But that's part of the field. But sort of they're not two really, which is the basic teaching. That's why it's like over my shoulder here, not two. The field of time and the field of the heart are not separate. We're in both at the same time, and the unified field of the heart is ever present, radiant, eternal. It doesn't come and go. Now that's, nobody ever taught me that. I had to learn it. Well, I had to earn it with 50 years of doing this kind of work. But really, my background, I was lucky. I'm so grateful. One of the things I'm grateful for was, being at Notre Dame at a time where you could afford to uh, just read the great books. And my father always was great about that. He said, "What are you going to do with that?" great books. He said, "You're gonna read books your whole life?" And I said, "Yeah." I was cocky, and anybody could get a job in the late '60s and early '70s, which I did. I started teaching right away. But not only did I read the great books, which is very much talking most of the time about the field of the heart, although they didn't put it that way. You read War and Peace, the Brothers Karamazov. I mean, I love the Russian people. I love the writers, Chekhov, Dostoevsky, Turgenev, all these guys. I love the Russian people. The government, not so much, you know. But so we got to, we have to distinguish between the government that's in power right now and the people. And the Russian people, boy, they deserve a break. I pray for them as well as I pray for the Ukrainian people. Pray with those peoples because they're both in tough shape. I don't hate the Russian people or Russia. Government, another story. So along with reading, and we were reading, metaphysics, all the great books, and a lot of the literature was of the heart. I also did a minor in the history of science. So it was really, I was working in both fields, though I didn't know it, because science is the field of time. It's a field of measurement. And what's occurring to scientists who work with the very small quantum material and the very large astrophysics, those guys, they're faced with a great mystery because obviously there's something outside of the field of time and space that is playing by different rules when you get real small or you get real big. That's why a lot of the physicists start sounding like mystics. So this is really to hold this in your consciousness today, that we're in both fields at the same time. And so if the work of meditation and the practices we're doing is about becoming more familiar with the field of the heart, more familiar with that part of you that doesn't come and go, even with when this body and mind stop working. I learned that when my mother lost her mind and she was living with me, and Pema Chodron, who I'm featuring today a little bit and will be in the next few weeks. She wrote me a letter, and she's a handwritten letter, and she after I wrote her, because I was just couldn't deal with my mother losing her mind. And well, it was a single sentence. She had a lot of great wisdom in this letter, but the single sentence was a bend in my river. She said, "Your mother's lost her mind, but her heart's still fine," which is her essence is still there. You can communicate to that. Well, that was news to me, but that was a bend in the river that I look back on. I was so grateful for that. She was getting 80 letters a day back at that time up in Nova Scotia in her monastery, and she would pick up one on the way from supper back to her room, and she would answer that, and her secretary would pro forma answer the other ones. She picked up mine. Now, how do you account for that? That's a mystery. That's grace. So I'm gonna go through just very shortly. We're gonna have sort of a talk and then some practice, and so I'm gonna really try to make the talk condensed. But I want you to get to our third kind of practice we're going to work on. I want to look at just very quickly 1,000 years of Buddhist history, and these are called the turnings, the three turnings of the wheel of the Buddha. And I'm going to compress this 1,000 years into a couple minutes, but so you can get an idea of where this practice comes from that I'm going to be talking about. So the evolution of Buddhism, it's classical. They talk about the wheel turn, wheel to the Dharma turn 3 times. And it started turning about 500, 600, 700 BC. The thing about Indians is their Hindu mind is so vast that they don't bother marking time. And so dates, unlike the Chinese, especially where it eventually went to, the Chinese were always keeping these careful records, but the Hindus, the Indians in the subcontinent were not so keen. So we know it was somewhere 500 to 700 before the Common Era. And the first form of Buddhism was, it was called Hinayana, which means the fundamental form. And fundamentalism did not mean the same thing it means now. The fundament is the ground. The firmament is the sky, and we're always working in these two dimensions between earth and sky. The actual character in Chinese is this kind of stick man who connects earth and sky. We have both. Earth is, the ground. And so fundamental Buddhism is called Hinayana, sometimes called the lesser vehicle, but that like putting it down. No, it's this where it started. Now I'm going to use a metaphor here. I call it the poison ivy metaphor to show you how Buddhism evolved. Okay. Well, the fundamental vehicle, and yana means vehicle. So Hinayana means a fundamental vehicle. The vehicle meant basically to take you across the river from the side of the river that's suffering to the side that isn't suffering. So the fundamental vehicle, um, it's sort of when you take kids out on a nature walk. You show them what the poison ivy looks like. You say leaves of three, leave it be. That's something that you tell little kids. And these were kids. I mean, these were even for 500 years, which the first turning was about 500 years thereabouts. You had people where you were trained. They were trainees. The Buddha invented the monastery. There was no monastery in any religion at that time. And in some religions, for instance, the Muslim religion, there's still no monasteries. So he invented that idea about 1,000 years before St. Benedict invented it in Christianity. So the Buddhists had 1,000 year jump on that monastic thing. So they invented a monastery, which is basically you got a free lunch and then you got a roof over your head and you didn't have to go out and work for a living. You just meditated all the time, and then begged lunch. And so they cut out. And at the beginning, of course, it was for all men. Of course, that's just the way it was. Eventually, they had monastic situations for women too. But so we got a monastery somewhere. Yeah, and they were practicing a kind of mindfulness meditation, which is really like uh, just paying attention to every sensation while you were sitting and basically trying to drop. That was the way to drop out of the mind to go to something deeper. Eventually they had a sense of something that didn't move like your thoughts, and they called that the Buddha nature. It's called several other things even in Buddhism. In about 500 years, leaves a three, leave it be. So they had hundreds of things that like prohibitions, like you have with kids, rules in the classroom, and they don't touch money, don't touch women, don't, no alcohol, no garlic, they had all these things. And so it was a kind of thou shalt kind of the way you treat kids who might hurt themselves. And that went on for a while. And then there was a shift, another turning of the wheel, and they took all the good stuff. They included that, but in the next vehicle called the Mahayana, which meant the great vehicle. Maha means great, Mahatma, Mahayoga. Maha means great. So the great vehicle, uh, their metaphor for it. All right, yeah, okay. So what about these people who do touch the poison ivy and do get infected with suffering? How about that? Maybe we should do something for them. So in about 500, 600 years, Buddhism came, it wasn't strictly monastic. Now they had a philosophy of we need to do something about these people, all these people in town who are suffering. So it was more like the idea of let's doctor these people. Let's create a salve to help them. And and in that turning, and that became Zen and Chan Buddhism, and that went over the mountains and started developed in China and then in Japan. But that was a second turning where it had more of a social dimension. You're worried about more than just you getting out of suffering. You're saying, let's help some of these other people. Now, exactly when that happened, they had a new, beyond the Buddha nature, they had a new birthed a new notion that you could be a bodhisattva, which means a bodhi means awake, and sattva is a being, which means, and you would help others. Now, exactly at that same time, Jesus popped up in the Middle East almost simultaneously, and any Buddhist who understands that the meaning of the Bodhisattva would understand that that was Jesus's. He just popped up like that. We don't know how he got there, but there he was, another in another religion, this bodhisattva thing. I've got a poem on the bodhisattva I want to uh, read you, and it'll be in the Monday mailing. It's called Becoming a Bodhisattva. Human life is both graceful and sorrowful. Human life is both graceful and sorrowful. The field of time is the field of sorrow. How do we live with that? Beyond the field of time is another field, the unified field of love. It's graceful and it's within us. It's within each of us. Know it or not, believe it or not. When you realize the eternal within, however, you can choose to become a conduit for grace and healing, and you can dance with joy and solidarity in both the field of time and eternity. It's a choice. And if you were here in the morning, the Dalai Lama repeated the Bodhisattva prayer from Shantideva's work, one of his teachers, forebearers, and it's a choice. It's a choice. You can once you make this choice, you can become a conduit for the grace and healing of the universe that's available at all times, and you can dance with joy and solidarity in both the fields of time and eternity. So you sort of commit to going into the field of sorrow and be in joyful solidarity with the people. Well, the joy comes from the fact that you know there's something that doesn't come and go. And you have to realize that. Maybe it takes, 50 years of sitting. You say, well, I don't have that much time left. Well, whatever time it takes before it sort of sinks into your bones that you've had this experience that there's something that doesn't come and go. And, you got all eternity. I came to the point where I stopped believing in the afterlife. When I died, then I would go to heaven. I just believe in life. And when you're born into this universe, and then we've all had that, that thing that doesn't come and go will go on. Traditions have different things they call it: Buddha nature, true nature, soul, the Atman. Depending on they throw ideas and words at it, but there's a sense of when you experience that thing that is one with everything else, and however long it takes, so you'll come back, and maybe hopefully in another human body if you've lived well in this life, and the lessons go on. School goes on until you get it. The Tibetans are very kind and helpful with that vision. They say, yeah, you're going to get it. Everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to become they would say, a Buddha. You're a Buddha already. You just don't know it in some cases. So, but the idea that you can choose in this time now that we're in, you can choose to do the opposite of what the ego wants to do. The ego wants to move away from pain, wants to block pain and suffering, and then just try to get the goodies themselves. That's actually a recipe for suffering, according to Buddha. So this is a kind of jujitsu. It's kind of turning that the way to get to joy and feeling what Jesus said. He's like, I came to give you life and in abundance, a sense of fullness, is actually to do the opposite, is to actually to go into the field of time with a kind of joyful solidarity, And so the third type of Buddhism after the Mahayana is called the Vajrayana. And Vajra means diamond, indestructible. So you get, and that's the Tibetan schools. And they have another image going with the metaphor of, oh, leaves it three, leave it be, and then, okay, let's create a salve to put on people who are hurt. The third one is the image of transformation in Tibetan Buddhism is called Tantra, and the symbol is the peacock. And I remember being in Haiti at Janine's place, and she has a couple peacocks. and I never had seen peacocks before that. But the peacock, well, why is that the symbol of transformation and of really the whole, what Tibetans are about? They're about transforming you into your own true nature, and then also having the ability to heal the world. Well, the peacock eats the poison plants, literally, and the poison plants turns into their plumage becomes radiant. Now, that's a very interesting metaphor and symbol. Peacock appears in Tibetan iconography. Whenever you see the peacock, it's about that, eating the poison, taking the poison into yourself, taking the suffering into yourself. And actually, you won't get poisoned because you're taking it into uh, your spiritual heart, which is where it's a kind of alchemical thing that people in the Middle East were working with too at that time. And Vajrayana, this indestructible way of doing it, it didn't come about to about 700, 800 AD, and it was a little rocky because the Tibetans didn't like the Buddhists at first. They had their own shamanistic nature religion, and so they killed a bunch of them. And so there was a couple of waves. The next time the Buddhists came over the thing, they said, well, we'll bring the Ayurvedic medicine. So these were the Mahayana guys, and they brought Ayurvedic medicine. They said, they heal your grandmother, and then they would tell you a little bit about their way. And gradually, because the Tibetans weren't all like the Dalai Lama. They were sort of wild, crazy guys. Just that's why they think America could actually make it, because they said, well, we were wild and warlike at one time, just like you guys. Well, we learned. So they hold out hope. Now, the pinnacle practice, some of you know this practice, but some of you don't, but it's time to revisit it, whether you know it or not. The pinnacle practice in the Vajrayana is Tonglen. And that's two words in Tibetan. It means receiving and sending. There's a coming and going, a giving and take. And what you receive is the pain of the world. And the key is that you can transform it, and then you can send out essentially love. I'm going to read you something from Pema's book. This is a book, if you don't have this book, you should get it. This is the one book I can recommend. I don't know how many stars I would give it. 5 would be too little. The book is called When Things Fall Apart. It's her third book, and the masterpiece. And it's about exactly handling these kinds of times when things seem to be falling apart. Could be personally, my oldest son just got divorced after 20 years. It rocks the boat. It's like chaos. And he's still trying to come back from it. He didn't have this teaching. He's not, you're limited what you can do with your own family. Jesus knew that. So did the Buddha. But here's a few words from her, with some key words about the practice of Tonglen. She has 2 chapters in this book just on this practice. She says, in difficult times, it's only bodhicitta that heals. Bodhicitta is the Sanskrit word that means the noble or awakened heart. In the Catholic terminology, our term was the Sacred Heart. And often you'll see you see holy pictures and things from the 50s and 40s and 50s, and where Jesus had an exposed heart, and Mary will have this exposed heart. Those are the 2 icons that usually had this, what they call the Sacred Heart. And I was sort of a little pissed off about it, actually. I said, how come these guys got that? But actually, from a Buddhist point of view, and I think from a mystic Christian point of view, we all have it. Now, in Buddhism, in Sanskrit, they call it the bodhicitta. That really means noble or awakened heart. Sacred Heart in Catholicism. We have some part of us that is awakened, is sacred, and it represents that thing that doesn't come and go. It's always available. Everything else can be lost. I mean, somebody could cut out your physical heart and you die or whatever, but the Sacred Heart would still be there. The bodhicitta would still be there. So she said, in difficult times, it's only this awakened heart, the sacred heart that heals, when inspiration has become hidden, when we feel ready to give up, this is the time when healing can be found in the tenderness of pain itself. This is the time to touch the genuine heart of the Buddha. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And that's what we're going to do. That's what Tonglen is. Tonglen is the practice of taking in suffering to the awakened heart, to the bodhicitta, to the sacred heart. And you take it in on the in breath, hold it there for 4 heartbeats, because that's like the cauldron of transformation there. So you're taking in whatever pain and suffering you're feeling at the moment, or that is in the outside world, you know, the wars, Haiti. I mean, I breathe. I do Tonglen for Haiti every afternoon. I do my Tonglen work in the afternoon usually. So I breathe in whatever is being suffered in Haiti on the in breath, hold it for 4 beats of the heart, and then breathe out love. I don't know what the people need in Haiti. I don't even know what my own son needs at any given moment. But I breathe in whatever is bugging him, whatever anguish he's feeling, and I send him back on the out breath. Love. Who doesn't need love? And then, you know, that love can be in a lot of forms. In Haiti, love could be finding firewood. Love could be finding, you know, in Gaza, love could be finding a warm place to sleep. You know, so you don't have to know. See, this is really interesting kind of intercessory prayer that actually you could do in whatever faith, because we all have the equipment. You can be an atheist, it doesn't matter. You could be of a polytheist, a monotheist, you could be, you know, you could be agnostic, it doesn't matter. If you just, you can practice this because everybody comes equipped with that. Can you prove that? No. But in my practice, I've proved it. And that's why the tradition has existed for more than 1,000 years, in a way. And you should try it, experiment with it. So on the in breath, you breathe in the darkness. You visualize. This is not so much the kind of meditation, the emptiness meditation that all traditions have. This is an energy meditation, which is a kind of intercessory kind of prayer that doesn't take a God. It doesn't take knowing what the person needs even. That's the beautiful thing about it, that you just take in the obvious pain and suffering, or, you know, sometimes not so obvious. I don't know what's happening in Ukraine at the moment, but you just take in the darkness, hold it in the cauldron of your awakened heart, and then on the out breath, send out light. So in darkness in, light out. And the light is the light of love. It's that inner light that the Quakers always talk about. Yeah, even if you don't feel it. Okay. And most of the time, I don't know what happens when I do it. Same way it didn't matter to Van Gogh. He just painted, you see. That was his form of intercessory prayer, by the way. Who hasn't like just had time stop, and you're out of the field of time for a moment when you look at a Van Gogh painting or some of the great art, or read a novel. Yeah, see, artists do this all the time too. They might not know it, but they're creating something that takes you for a moment out of the field of time. C.S. Lewis said, "We read to know we're not alone." So there's a connection that happens. Okay, so Tonglen, we're going to practice it a couple times, and we're going to practice it just for a few minutes here, just maybe 5 minutes or so. And the first thing the thing that's easily missed is the first person you practice with, the first situation you practice in is your own. Now, this is also a specific practice in Buddhism, which is called Maitri, Maitri. Maitri is loving kindness for yourself. Man, it took me a long time. I was working for everybody else, but it's easy to bypass yourself. So we're just going to practice for a few minutes doing Tonglen for yourself. And it really comes in handy because sometimes you're just freaking out. You don't even know why. You're just, you're all tense or you're anxious or you're really just cracking up when and so that those are the moments you do it for yourself. And so this is just as if you have the basics of it. You're breathing the darkness into the Sacred Heart, and you're sending back the light of love on the out breath. So in breath, out breath, rides on the breath. Okay, and I want to just point out and give you a little guided 5 minutes, maybe not even 5 minutes, where we'll do it for ourselves. Okay, so let's uh, let's put down the pens, and then we'll get a chance to write for a few minutes before the session is out, the teaching is out. But let me give you the instructions on doing it for yourself. And this is just how I found to do it. There's other approaches, but I'll just give you one avenue for doing it for yourself. So put the pen down, and this is visualization. And Tibetans, when they do regular meditation, emptiness meditation, they have their eyes a little bit open. There's a reason for that. But when they do visualization, this is a visualization. So you shut your eyes, and so you're in this dark screen, this little projection room here of the mind. And I'll invite you to just put one of your hands over the center of your chest, over the heart. Don't have to do it, but somehow it helps. And I do it when I'm especially freaking out, and I'm going to sit down and do a few breaths for myself. Again, this is loving kindness, loving yourself first. Okay. It's sort of like putting your oxygen mask on before you put it on the child next to you. And so this is how I start all Tonglen sessions, is doing it for myself. And that's tricky. So this is the way I found how to do it. So if you can put your hand over the center of your chest, over the center, or not, it depends. You don't have to do it, but just inviting you to try this. And then just sit for a moment. Just be breathing as usual. And just sit there for a moment and just settle. And I use um, breathing. It all rides on the breath. So be aware of your breath now. No, nothing. Just be aware of your normal breath, just for a moment. It's your breath, even though it comes and goes, it's as stable as you get in the field of time, body and mind. The breath keeps going. Thank goodness we don't have to think about it. Just notice the breath coming in and out and be grateful for that. Be grateful that it's autonomic, that you don't have to think. Inhale, exhale. That would be, we're conscious of it now, just in a way to start with gratitude. What a wonderful evolutionary thing. We're breathing into clean air, and we're exhaling waste products. That's normally what breath is all about. Breathing into clean air, fresher air, and then letting go of the waste products, the CO2. Now we're going to reverse that. Buddhism, in a way, reverses everything. Just the same way we run away from pain and we go towards pleasure, we're going to reverse that in Tonglen. That's why it's a spiritual practice. It's a discipline. And we're going to be actually, for ourselves, we're going to be breathing in the toxicity into our Sacred Heart, and then sending back the white light of healing. Now, you can visualize it. As you breathe, we're not doing Tonglen yet. We're just trying to be in a body. And so with your eyes shut, visualize your whole body sitting here, hand over your chest or not, and feel your feet on the floor, going all the way up with your awareness. Even with your eyes shut, you can visualize your whole body up to your knees, to your waist, up to your chest area, your two arms radiating out from it, and then throat, head, all the way to the top of the head. You can visualize that. People say, "Oh, I can't visualize it." Well, I bet you can visualize that. Now, what you want to add to that visualization is there are trillions of independent cells throughout that whole landscape, trillions. And we're going to be working on the cellular level. This is sort of sometimes called cellular breathing, where we're going to visualize breathing the toxicity, the darkness of every cell, from the soles of the feet to the hair on the top of our heads. And we'll be breathing this darkness coming up, coming in, coming down from the head, all into the central area. And then on the out breath, we'll hold it there for a few seconds. Then on the out breath, we'll send out white light radiating in all the directions from the center. So we'll do a few breaths just cleaning our cellular nature, just really working on the cellular level. But the body works on the cellular level, you see, all the time. We're just going to give it a little help. So, all right, so let's start doing this formally now for a few minutes. So on the in breath, visualize darkness coming from these trillions of cells to the center in the middle of your chest as you breathe in. And then hold it there for a few heartbeats. I use 4, but if you're running out of breath, you can use less. And then on your exhale, visualize white light coming from the central heart that goes in all the directions out and fills each of those trillions of cells with light. That's how you do Tonglen for yourself, or one way anyway. So let's take a little time to do that. Just take your time, breathing in, visualizing the darkness coming to this central point, the bodhicitta, the sacred heart, holding it for 4 heartbeats. I bet you can feel your heartbeat, whether your hand is there or not, when you hold your breath. And then gently releasing it. Let a white light radiate all the way through your body. Every cell. Let's do this just for a couple of minutes. The darkness and the toxicity, which could be tension, which could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be grief. You don't have to name it, but you just breathe in the darkness. Hold it for 4 heartbeats. And then send back out the white light of love. Loving your own body at the cellular level. So try that for a few breaths. Just do it very gently. No force. Just slow breathing in, giving the chance to just collect all the darkness in every cell, holding it, 4 heartbeats, and then releasing it slowly and gently back out from the center to the periphery of the body. This is energy transference. We'll do a couple more breaths. And if at any point you just sort of freak out and don't want to do it, well, that's fine. That's okay. It happens sometimes. But just let's try a couple more breaths as best we can. Breathing in to the heart from every cell, whatever darkness is in there, whatever suffering is in there, and then sending back the white light of love on the out breath. Love on the out breath. Okay, then just let go of the practice. Go back to just normal breathing for a moment. Okay, let's just start here. Now we've at least got an image of how you can work with your own pain and toxicity and craziness in the moment. And that, and then when we come back, we will we'll do our meditation. We'll include that and we'll build on it a little bit. But that's good enough for now, I think. That's good enough, Cheryl. You can conclude the talk, I think.